StraightallDay.com. Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves all of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together in one bundle, one package, one mindset, one philosophy, one book. This show right here, if you don't have a book, get it at workonyourgamebook.com. And I just gave you away the name of the title of the show. It is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic, we're going to talk about the problem with excuses, is that they're always available. Now, first of all, everyone here knows what an excuse is. Most of us never admit to using them. Most of us never admit to crafting them, even in our own minds, unless we're having a really, really harsh conversation with ourselves. And often we fail to do that unless pushed to do so by some outside external force. But here's the interesting thing. Every one of us is really good at noticing when someone else has an excuse. Isn't that interesting? That we never make them ourselves, but we always notice when somebody else is making them. So I'll let you can think about that. You can think about that later on tonight. After you finish listening to this, later on when you're taking a shower or you're going to bed, you can think about how that is. You notice everyone else's excuses, but you never notice any of your own. Or you never make any of your own. Who knows? But the problem with excuses is that they're always available. What we're going to talk about here today is how we can keep ourselves from crafting those excuses, even in our own minds. Because those are the most pernicious excuses are the ones that we tell to ourselves. Not the ones that we say out loud or the ones that we post online, but the ones that we say to ourselves and we allow us to feel okay with not getting or doing or being what we want in life. First of all, before we even get deeper into this, let's get a definition of this word excuse so that, again, we're all on the same page. You know where I'm coming from here. Definition of excuse: attempt to lessen the blame, attaching to a fault or offense, or to seek to defend or justify. So excuses, for the most part, we can agree they are relative to the observer, right? So what I may say, you may give a reason for something happening. I will say, well, you're making an excuse. And you could say, well, I'm just giving a reason. And vice versa. I could say, well, this is the reason that happened. You could say, well, you're just making an excuse. And so it's relative what's an excuse and what's not. So what we're talking about here today is not the excuses that other people make, even though I know we can all point out a bunch of them, right? We're talking about the excuses that we make to ourselves, the excuses that we give ourselves for what we do. Now, I will tell you, before we even go further into this introduction, that I did an entire section in my book, Work on Your Game, on eliminating excuses and eliminating self-consciousness and eliminating having to explain yourself, to, especially to other people, forever in life. So you don't have the book, Work on Your Game. Make sure you go get it at workonyourgamebook.com. And I'm going to give you over $1,300 in immediate digital bonuses. So while you wait for the book to come in the mail, and it won't take long, you're also going to get those digital bonuses. You don't have to wait at all, because that's going to come immediately email. And I heard emails pretty fast. So I got a few masterclasses where we talked about excuses in the past. So before I finish with this introduction, let me tell you what those are. Masterclass number 1513, do not marry your excuses. Masterclass number 1437, turning your excuses into reasons. Number 279, youth is not an excuse. If you feel like you failed at something, you say, oh, well, I'm younger, so that makes it okay. No, it's not okay. And I told you in Masterclass number 279 why it's not okay. Masterclass number 41, 3 steps to eliminating excuses forever. And actually, I used a similar heading in my book, Work on Your Game, that I used in Masterclass number 41. And Masterclass number 31, bullshit excuses that losers use. So you want to check yourself for that, not because you're trying to become a loser, just to make sure you're not being one and using some bullshit excuse. So as we were saying with excuses, we can know personally, because again, we're talking about with ourselves, not with other people. We can know when we're making an excuse in our own head, but any of us who has good communication and rationalization skills, and I'm going to assume that you have probably a healthy dose of both, being that you're a podcast listener, and mean you're smarter than the average individual by studies. You can make any excuse seem like a justifiable reason in your own mind. We call that rationalization. That's what rationalizing is. It's crafting a story in our minds that makes something that's not okay seem okay. That's what it means to rationalize. And this is a skill, is a trait that is exclusive to human beings. Animals cannot rationalize. Animals see things exactly as they are. They don't have the ability to rationalize. They don't have the ability to think into the future. They don't really look into the past. Human beings, we're the ones that can do that. That's why we can dominate the animal kingdom, because we can see the past, we can think about the future, and we can rationalize. We can craft stories in our own minds to give meaning to things that are to objective facts. I mean, look around the world right now. You see a whole lot of people who have crafted stories in their minds. Like how much time you spend on social media? How many idiots do you see out there who have crafted some story in their mind that has just made them feel a way about certain facts that are clear and obvious to you, but to them, they're just idiots because they just made up this story that makes no sense whatsoever. You know, everybody else out there, right? You know what I'm talking about. Not us, but everybody else out there. They made these stories, these rationalizations. They have just crafted this whole narrative in their mind about this objective fact that is clear and obvious to you and all the smart people out there, but these dummies, they made up this story, this rationalization. Well, here's the thing. Rationalization is a skill that human beings have, and we all do it. We all are really good at rationalizing things, coming up with stories whenever things don't go exactly as we want them to go. And since our focus here at Work on Your Game is always on ourselves, even when we talk about other people, we always bring it back to ourselves. Today's masterclass is about making sure we do not make the mistake of dressing up our excuses as reasons to let ourselves off the hook, because we always can do this if we want to. Again, if you are good at rationalization, and if you are human, you're good at rationalization. Okay, so you don't have to, there's no test for you to figure out if you're good at it or not. You're good at it. All right, if you're old enough to be listening to me right now, all right, you found this podcast and you're listening to it, you know how to rationalize. You may not have realized that you were doing it. You may not have called it that. You may have never admitted to it. You're good at it. You're good at crafting stories in your mind to make objective outcomes and objective facts feel and be okay with you, so that you're able to, you know, eat, sleep, and breathe, so that you don't just let your mind be dominated by something that is not what you want. Today's class is making sure that we don't do too much rationalization, because we will always have this option available to us if we want. It's about not letting ourselves off the hook with excuses in our own minds. Forget about everybody else. Point number one. Today's topic, once again, the problem with excuses is that they are always available. Number one, you cannot control or change what you do not own. What do I mean when I say you do not own? When something that happens to you in life is the fault of someone else or something else which you do not control, thusly, you cannot do anything about it directly. Maybe you can persuade that someone or something to change. Maybe you can hope that someone or something can change. Maybe you can even demand that someone or something will change, but that still requires two steps. Like, first of all, you have to communicate that you are looking for something to change based on the other person or that outside thing. And then they have to actually, well, secondly, they have to actually register your communication. And third, they have to decide to actually do it. And then fourth, they have to actually do it. All right, so that's a lot of steps. Whereas if it was just you and you owned it, then it would be step one, you communicate to yourself that you want that to change, and step two, you would actually do it. So you see how it's a lot fewer steps. We talked a couple days ago about what? Complexity, lowering complexity in your life. Simplest way to lower complexity is you want to take all this, you want to take extra steps out of a process. You don't want to take too many steps. In basketball, for example, if a player is driving to the basket to dunk the ball, you ideally want to reduce the number of dribbles you need to take to get to the basket, because every dribble you take and every step you have to take, that gives your defensive players more opportunity to close in on you and cut off your airspace and take away your opportunity to get to the basket and get that dunk. So if you can take one dribble and 2 steps and dunk the ball, that is preferable to taking 2 dribbles and 4 steps. Of course, some of those steps are part of your dribble to get to the rim, because the more steps you take, the more dribbles you take, that means more time is taken, and you're giving more time to the defense to get in the way and slowing you down. That's reducing complexity, another way of reducing complexity. But the whole point that we're making here is, if you want to control something, you want to change something, you got to take ownership of it. Only way you can have ownership of it is if you take full responsibility of it. If you don't take full responsibility for it, that means you don't have the ability to respond to the situation, because you don't have that's what responsibility is, your ability to respond. When someone or something else is the reason for your situation, that someone or something else has control over you and your situation, or at least in that situation. So, even if, as the saying goes, it is someone else's fault, it is always your responsibility. Even if that responsibility of yours means you still need to get someone or something else to do something, then again, you need to take ownership of it. You need to take ownership of, it is my job, it is my responsibility. I will see to it that this someone or something else does what I needed to do within a reasonable time frame. You got to put a deadline on it, because if you just say I want it to change, but it changes whenever it changes, well, you're eventually going to run out of time. Our time is not unlimited here, in case anybody didn't know. You still got to put some kind of limit on when that's going to happen, and you got to take ownership of, I'm going to see to it that this actually happens. And that way, it would probably help if you stacked up some resources that would weigh things in your favor, for lack of a better term. You cannot control and you cannot change what you do not own. Everybody clear on that? Point number 2. Today's topic is the problem with excuses is that they are always available. Number 2, excuses are an acceptance of less than. Excuses are an acceptance of less than. We do not make excuses when we achieve, succeed, and win in life. Usually we don't. Right? Have you ever achieved something or had some great accomplishment, or you set out to do something and you actually did it and you won, and you were just being looked at as successful by everybody? You looked in the mirror and you knew that you had succeeded, you had achieved, and then you said, oh yeah, well, and then you start crafting excuses in your mind, you start crafting rationalizations in your mind. You've never done that. Why? Because when we win, we don't need excuses. We don't need rationalizations. We don't need to make a story. We tell a story if we want to, but we don't need to, because the results speak for themselves, right? It's only when we fail, fall short, and lose that we even consider excuses. We even have to consider rationalizations. An excuse is your acceptance of not getting or having what you want. It is a story that you comprise that is merely the justification that allows you to not focus on it so you can go to sleep at night. Let me say that again. There's a lot that I said there. An excuse is your acceptance of you not getting or having what you want, and the story that you craft that represents the excuse, all that is the justification that allows you to not focus on it so much, knowing that you came up short, that you left it short, you didn't do what you were supposed to do, and allows you to sleep at night, allows you to feel all right, because you know the responsibility is not on you. Because if it was all on you, you wouldn't be able to relax. You wouldn't be able to calm down. You wouldn't be able to look at yourself in the mirror, at least if you're the type of person that I think you are, listen to a show called Work on Your Game. You wouldn't be able to look at yourself in the face knowing that you came up short and didn't do everything that you needed to do to get to your outcome. So you come up with an excuse, a rationalization that makes you all right with it, because now you're putting the responsibility at the feet of someone else. So if you say, well, you know what? I didn't make that team, but it's because the coach was hating on me. Okay, now the responsibility is on the coach, right? The coach is the reason that you didn't make it. It's not anything that you did, not anything that you didn't do, which you would have to own, and you would have to do something about that. It's what the coach did. And since it's the coach's fault, all right, you can relax, you can chill out, and you can walk around with your head up high, because you know everything you needed to do for the situation, you did it. It was just the coach that messed it up. Now you feel all right. That is what we call rationalization. All right, that is an excuse. Now your question may be, and if you didn't have this question, I'm going to supply the question to you. Well, Dre, what if something like that did happen? Maybe I can't go back in time and get another chance at doing a certain thing. I did not achieve that thing. Let's say I do take ownership. Let's say I do say, you know what? It was my fault. I did come up short. I didn't do what I needed to do. I did not achieve in that space, but you can't go back and fix it. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to relax? How am I supposed to sleep at night? How am I supposed to do anything about that if I can't go back and change the past? Well, here's what you do. Number 1, take ownership of it. As we talked about here in point number 1, you cannot control what you don't own. You can't change what you don't own. Take ownership of it and say, you know what? I messed up here. I came up short here. I didn't deliver here. I'm the one who did not bring out I'm the one who didn't bring home the bacon. I didn't deliver the goods, whatever those goods were supposed to be. I didn't do that. Take ownership of it. And now you assess. You work backwards from what happened and ask yourself, where did I make a mistake? Where did I commit an error in judgment? Where did I see one thing, it turned out to be something else? Where did I see nothing, but it turned out to be something there? Where did I make a mistake? Where can I improve? Where do I need to work on my game? What information did I not have? What skills was I not equipped with? What did I not see that I should have saw? What did I see that I should not have seen? These are questions that you ask yourself. In the military, they call this a debrief. You are looking back on what happened and asking yourself where you messed up, where you could have been better, where do you have areas for improvement. These are all things that you need to be looking into. Even when you succeed, you need to be doing this. Often people don't do this when they succeed. I heard Tony Robbins say when people win, they tend to party, and when people lose, they tend to ponder. So if you can start pondering even when you win, all right, then you'll start assessing yourself even more, and you'll start noticing where you need to improve, and maybe, just maybe, get someone around you who you trust, who maybe knows the game, maybe better than you, maybe knows the game as well as you, who can help you assess yourself objectively, non-emotionally, non-judgmentally, so that you can really see where you need to improve. Often we are the easiest to deceive when it comes to our own weaknesses. We can't see our own blind spots. One of my mentors once said, Dre, you can't see yourself in the mirror. Your failures and your weaknesses, you can't see them because you've been living with them so long, you've developed blind spots to them so that you don't have to keep noticing them. Or you have created rationalizations in your own mind so that you don't have to assess them or do anything about them. But other people notice them very, very starkly. Other people will notice your weaknesses very easily. Even people who don't know you that well notice your weaknesses. And just like you notice other people's. So find someone or get some people around you who can help you assess yourself on a consistent basis. Because if you think you can do it yourself, you may be better than others. You may be exceptional at assessing yourself and better than most people are at doing it, but you're probably not that great. Not as great as you think you are. So excuses, as we're saying here, we're still on point number 2. The topic once again today is the problem with excuses, that they are always available. An excuse is your acceptance, your rationalization of having something that is less than what you actually wanted. We never make excuses when we have achieved, succeeded, and won. Only when we fail, fall short, and we lose. And when you make an excuse, that rationalization is just the justification that allows you to not have to focus on it. So you can store it away and be okay with it. What I say is forget all that. What I suggest you do is face your rationalizations, be radically honest with yourself. This is something that many people talk about this in different personal development books. I was just recently rereading the book Principles by Ray Dalio. He talks about being radically objective and radically honest with each other when it comes to your job, reviewing somebody's job and just assessing how somebody's doing at their job. Even someone who may be junior to you can be radically honest with someone who's their superior, because the whole point is not what's the word I'm looking for? Caring for other people's egos. It is about making sure everybody's doing their job at the best level that they could be doing it at. So face your rationalizations, accept that when you came up short, that you did end up with less than what you actually wanted, which will happen sometimes in life. You can be okay with the fact that sometimes this is going to happen. You don't have to be okay with the fact that it happened to you maybe this one time, but accept the fact that nobody is going to bat 1,000 all of their lives. And then assess yourself and then try a new approach. What do I need to change about my approach? Maybe you just need to be there earlier. Maybe you need to stay later. Maybe you need a whole overhaul of everything that you're doing. Maybe you need one new piece of information. Maybe you need less information than you had before, half. But what is the difference in your approach the next time around? Because we know the definition of insanity, doing the exact same thing, expecting a different result. If you still want that aim for outcome, maybe you need to assess that. Maybe you're going after the wrong goal. Like George Jung in the movie Blow, he got arrested trying to sell marijuana, and his cellmate, when he was in jail, said, well, you got arrested selling marijuana, you might as well sell cocaine. You can make a whole lot more money. You still run the same risk of going to jail. You might as well sell coke. You make more money. And George said, you know what? You're right. And he changed his goal. Instead of selling marijuana, he was still selling drugs. He changed his sub goal. Instead of selling drugs as marijuana, he decided to sell drugs as cocaine, made a whole lot more money, became famous, and made a movie about him. Spent the rest of his life in jail. Well, not the rest of his life. He's out now. But he spent a good portion of his life in jail due to it. So I'm not telling you to do this. I'm just giving you an example. All right, don't sell drugs. Say no to drugs, all that stuff. Point number 3. Today's topic is the problem with excuses, that they are always available. Excuses are monuments to nothingness. When I was in the 6th grade, I had this teacher who every day she would write like a quote of the day. I think that's what she called it, quote of the day. And our job was, as soon as we came into the classroom, the first thing we had to do was pull out our notebooks, and we had to write down the quote of the day. And of all the quotes that she wrote, this is the only one that I remember still to this day. And it was this: excuses are monuments to nothingness. So when you make an excuse, even one in your mind, that's specifically, I always get trouble saying that word. That is specifically What we are talking about here today, the excuses that we make in our own minds, the excuses that we allow ourselves to be okay with that come from us. Excuses are you telling yourself and the world through your energy that you didn't get something done. This excuse, the excuse that you make up, is a monument that you build for the whole world to see, again, in your own mind, to commemorate your failure. That's what an excuse is. The excuse is like building a statue to let everyone know who comes across the statue, hey, I came up short, and I just built this statue to make sure everybody knows about the fact that I came up short. So I built this excuse as a monument to my failure. That's what an excuse is. But here's the good news. That's the bad news I just gave you, that you just built a statue to your own failure whenever you make an excuse. Here's the good news. In the summer of 2020, everybody knows, it doesn't matter where in the world you live, you know that people have been tearing down statues these days. A lot of statues have been getting torn down. I saw a video actually just today when I'm recording this of a Christopher Columbus statue getting torn down by a bunch of white Americans, and they threw it in a lake. Now, I couldn't understand why a bunch of white people were mad at Christopher Columbus, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But since people are tearing statues down these days, how about we tear down this statue? All right, tear down any monuments to nothingness that you have erected in your life. Any excuses that you have allowed yourself to live with, any rationalizations that you have become comfortable with, get rid of them. And stop being comfortable with not getting what you want. When you find yourself not having what you want in life, listen, I'm not telling you to be okay with it. I'm not telling you that you should just accept it. What I'm telling you is, hey, it's going to happen. There are times that you're going to come up short. And those are the times that you need to take a really, really hard look at yourself and say, what am I missing? Where do I need to work on my game? Where do I need to improve my game? Where am I playing the wrong game? Those are the questions that you need to ask yourself when things like this happen. Instead of building the monument to nothingness being an excuse, say, okay, no excuses. I came up short. All right, now I need to fix this. I need to fix this. Let's change all these things over here too. Tear down the statues to nothingness, and instead use that same energy that you would have used to build the statue. Use that same energy to address where your game needs to be fixed. And I got the perfect solution to help you do that. It's called Work on Your Game University, the game group membership, which you are already in. So make sure you check the reference list of every episode that has ever come out of this show inside the game group membership. There's a tab there with the master list. So make sure you're checking that so that you can check any masterclass that'll help you with whatever challenge you're having right now. Sports, business, life, interpersonal game, communication, confidence, discipline, mental toughness, personal initiative, and everything else in between. If you didn't know, you should know if you were listening to this point, but now you know. Now I've reminded you. Maybe you knew, but you just forgot about it. Now I reminded you. So let's recap today's class, which is the problem with excuses is that they are always available. The definition of an excuse: attempt to lessen the blame attaching to a fault or offense, or to seek to justify or defend. Excuses are relative to the observer, so that's why today we're talking about our own excuses. Point number one: you cannot control or change what you do not own. So if something or someone else is the reason for your situation, they have complete control over you and you can't do anything about it. Point number two: excuses are an acceptance of less than. We don't make excuses when we achieve, when we succeed, and when we win. We only make excuses when we fail, fall short, and lose. So an excuse is your acceptance of not getting or having what you want, and you make a story to justify the fact that you don't have what you want. I say, fuck all that. Face the rationalizations that you are making. Be clear with yourself that you are rationalizing and making excuses. Accept that you have less than what you want. And now figure out what needs to change about your approach so you can actually get what you want. Do not allow yourself to get complacent with having less than what you want in life. You can have everything that you want, but you must be willing to be radically honest with yourself in order to get there. Point number three: excuses are monuments to nothingness. When you make an excuse, even in your mind, especially in your mind, you are telling yourself and the world that you didn't get it done, and you are building a monument to make sure everybody knows about it. Since we're all tearing down statues these days anyway, how about you tear down these monuments? Do not erect a monument to nothingness in your life. Do not allow excuses. Check yourself when you catch yourself making one. Do something about it and start by working on your game. Dre, all